So let's use a melodic fifth siren as our sample movement, our sample interval. And we will sing from, well, we're not singing, right? We're training. We will train from A3 to A4, okay? A3 to A4. Up here at the top, A4 is kind of a high head tone note for most men, okay? Now, if you're a woman, just take everything up about 4 to 5 notes, and you'll essentially be in the same physiological position as you are with your male colleagues. So we have A3 to A4. Now, the first onset, first of all, let me just roll up to it. Let's do an onset and we'll get up to the A. Okay, so now I'm up here at an A4 inside my head voice. The first specialized onset, in fact, it might be the one onset that isn't so special. It is called track and release. Track and release is the basic baseline onset that we use in most of our, in a lot of our training and a lot of the singing. Track and release is simply an onset where you will put resonant tracking, an M, a resonant tracking in front of the onset and then release. Okay? It's very popular in singing. In the art form, we would use that quite often. Okay? The next specialized onset is called quack and release. A quack and release onset is an onset that I would use to help troubleshoot any problems that you would have as a student in getting vocal fold closure. Now, I'll say that again. If you're in vibratory mechanism M2, if you're in your head voice and you're having a hard time twanging, you're having a hard time achieving vocal fold closure, the quack and release onset will help you to build that closure, okay? Now, the quack and release onset has its own unique workflow. That is to say, it has a sequential workflow. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It has 4 positions that you need to learn and be familiar with in order to train the quack and release onset. I will now teach you the sequential workflow for a quack and release onset. Position number 1, an open embouchure and an open glottis, open the vocal folds, okay? Basically, I'm blowing hot air. It's falsetto. Okay, that's pretty easy, no big deal. Position number 2, I'm going to close my embouchure, close the mouth, but keep the glottis open. You see that? Okay, I have a closed embouchure, but my glottis is still open. It's still windy inside. Now, the reason we have the first 2 open glottis positions is to release the constriction. It makes sure that I'm not going to choke or constrict on the note. It helps achieve good head placement. The third position in the quack and release onset workflow is a modification to quack vocal mode. Now, this is a little bit tricky. Watch. I will remain in my head voice. I will slightly open my embouchure to a wide, teethy E, to an E. It sounds like an E. And I will quack in my head voice. The quack compression will be high and tight, very thin, okay? And laser-like. It's surgical. Listen. It's a quacky beaker me, a quacky tight, quacky me in the head voice. One more time, listen. Now, obviously, what that's doing is that's closing my vocal folds, right? I have engaged vocal twang. Vocal twang or the vocal mode quack. Actually, to be exact, it's quack vocal mode, not twang. It's quack because it has more compression than twang. All right, so I've modified to quack vocal mode. Now, the fourth position, I will engage my intrinsic anchoring set. I will leverage the tip of my tongue against the back of my bottom teeth. I will slightly, subtly lower my larynx, dampen my larynx, tune my larynx to the dampened overtone, okay? Maintain my compression, and basically shape the vocal tract or shape the resonant space around the quacky compression. All the while, during the entire movement, I will never let go of the compression. Listen. This is the quack and release onset. See what happens? First position, open glottis, open embouchure. Second position, open glottis, closed embouchure. I've released all my constrictors by doing that. Third position, modification of quack vocal mode. Fourth position, anchor, release, and get to the boom boom. Get to the cool. Here we go, one more time. We'll take it to a B flat. Okay? Now, the more you do this, the more you can speed it up. Like a guitarist playing scales or playing riffs on a guitar, they start slow. And then slowly they begin to speed it up. And then you get the speed and the accuracy together as you build the muscle memory. So I'll do a quack and release onset on a B flat, and we'll do it even faster this time. Watch. Eventually, in a performance, if you're singing a song, your quack and release onset might eventually get to You see? An audience doesn't hear that tenth of a second of quack compression at the very beginning. If you audience isn't going to hear that, but that would still be a quack and release onset. Quack and release onsets exist in training, obviously, especially when we use the workflow sequence. And as you can clearly hear, when we speed it up, they tend to work well for singing as well. Quack and release onset is there to ensure that you get vocal fold closure in the head voice if you're having a problem with twang and quack. Okay. The third specialized onset is an onset known as wind and release. Wind and release. Wind and release is very popular in singing, and for training, we use a wind and release onset, again, to release the constriction because it has an open glottis position in it. I'll show you in a second. And wind and release helps with ensuring that we get a good, deep, heady placement. So if you're singing shallow, if you're choking and you're singing shallow, a wind and release is a great way to fix that. And last, a wind and release onset is really great for apagio respiratory support. That is to say, to really get a good bottom pushing down and out, get respiration support, a stronger respiration in your phonation. This is a wind and release onset. As you can see, coming in my onset with a quick windy hey or a windy ha. So when you're doing your onsets and sirens and you're coming into your head voice, your top-down head voice onsets, if you feel choking, if you feel like you're constricting, usually as you get up around A4 and some of the higher notes, try deploying the wind and release onset as a troubleshooter, and you'll find that the constriction goes away and it might just work for you. It's great that way. Okay, the next specialized onset is an onset known as Messa di Voce. Messa di Voce onset. That's an Italian word that we use for, it roughly translates to a slow and controlled phonation. Messa di Voce is used just for that. It is used to to train command and control of your larynx. Command so that you are driving your larynx. Simply what we're going to do is start with an open glottis position in the head voice, or essentially falsetto, and in one slow and controlled movement we will modify from a neutral larynx phonating falsetto vocal mode into a dampened larynx phonating a twang-like phonation with a proper vowel. This is Messa di Voce. Do it in the shower, do it in the car, and build great command and control of your larynx and your phonator. Here we go. Messa di Voce. Okay, so that's Messa di Voce, just a slow and controlled modification from open falsetto positions to anchored twang-like positions. The next specialized onset, the last two I'm saving for the end here because I think in some sense they are, I don't want to say the most important, but maybe the most interesting. One of the things that we need to ensure that your head voice sounds like your chest voice. I know I'm oversimplifying that, but to make your head voice sound big and boomy, one of the things we want to do is make sure that you build the strength of a muscle that's a special muscle that's inside the larynx. It's called the interarytenoid. The interarytenoid muscle is a muscle that is primarily dominant inside of vocal mechanism or vibratory mechanism M1. That is to say, the interarytenoid muscle is dominant inside chest voice, where we speak, where we belt, where we shout. Now, I'm not teaching you to pull chest, but what I am doing is I'm going to show you how to get or leverage some of the benefits that can come from engaging the interarytenoid muscles while singing inside your head voice. This is super important, so I'm going to give you a dramatic pause. If you build the strength of your interarytenoids with this next onset called the contract and release onset, your head tones will sound huge. If you want your head tones to sound huge and boomy, you get on top of this contract and release onset, okay? Now, here's how we do it. If you recall, the quack and release onset had a specialized 4-position workflow. Contract and release onsets also have a 4-position workflow, and here's how they go. Position number 1, open embouchure, open glottis. Ha! I'm blowing hot air, it's falsetto. It's the same as the quack and release. Position number 2, open glottis, close my embouchure. All right, again, that's the same position. So position number 1 and position number 2 on quack and release onsets and contract and release onsets are exactly the same. All right, position number 3 on the contract and release onset is where it gets very interesting. You begin your contraction. Watch me. Ha! All right, let's sing real notes. Hang on. We'll sing a B flat. Ha! Watch that again. Now it's not elegant. It's a little clunky, but it's moving big muscles. So it's not going to contract and release. It's not elegant. It's not like a wind and release or a Messa di Voce. It's not something that's particularly pretty. But what it is it's building the muscle strength of the interarytenoids. The contract and release onset is like like squats in the gym. Okay. Now back to that 3rd position. Essentially, what I'm doing on a contract and release onset is I'm engaging my intrinsic anchoring set. I'm pushing my tongue against the back of my bottom teeth. I'm dampening my larynx, and I'm engaging compression. I'm bringing in that twang compression, all inside a closed embouchure. I'm also lowering my jawbone a little bit, my mandible a little bit too. Now watch me. Watch me do it again. When you do this, if you feel a little bit of heat, if you feel a little bit of lactic acid, a little bit of heat in and around your larynx, it's okay. The interarytenoid is a bigger muscle. You'll begin to feel it's almost an extrinsic muscle. It's bigger, so you'll feel more lactic acid, more heat when you do this. Again, first 3 positions. Ready and okay. Now, 4th position. Let's release it. When I release, what I'm going to do is I'm going to maintain that musculature. I've engaged the interarytenoids, and I've engaged all of this vibratory mechanism M1 musculature. I've engaged this musculature, and I'm going to maintain it as I sing through it. That's important. I'm lifting the weight and I'm holding. Lifting the weight and holding. Watch me go through the entire 4 steps and release. And you'll hear that it sounds more chesty. It sounds big and beefy. It's really cool. Okay, I'll do that again. Also, distortion when you do contract and release onsets, you can tend to kind of get some distortion coming through too, which is perfectly fine. Yay! All right. Now, when you do this, 5 or 10 minutes, no more. Don't be doing contract and release onsets all day long for an hour or 2 every day. That would be too much. Contract and release onsets are kind of like distortion. You need to train it. You need to work on it, but be cautiously optimistic. Don't do it all day. Give your body a chance to contract those muscles and then to rest and recuperate. One more time. We'll go to a C5. We'll go to C5 on a contract and release onset. All right, now when I do that, I feel a little bit of heat, but that's okay. I'm building great beefy strength in my head voice. This works. Do this and it'll work. But feel free to send me an email if you have questions, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you practice the contract and release onsets, that you don't confuse the release and make the release pushy. Sometimes students, when they practice the contract and release onsets, sometimes they push too hard. Be careful not to do that. The last specialized onset is another onset that we use to build more interarytenoid muscle activity. And that onset is called the attack and release onset. The attack and release onset. And what do you think the attack and release onset stands for? Attack and release. Maybe glottal attacks? That's right. Now, that might surprise you to hear a voice teacher telling you that it's okay to do glottal attacks. And there was a time in my career, not too long ago, where if I were to look back at this video, I would not believe that I'm asking my students to practice glottal attacks. But I now know, based on my research, that glottal attacks are okay in very short periods of use. You can do glottal attacks and get benefits from it, that is, strengthen the interarytenoid muscles to sound more chesty in the head voice, if you work them just in short spurts, okay? What is a glottal attack? Maybe I should explain that. A glottal attack is very primitive. It is just simply the vocal folds crashing together in chaos. the vocal folds crash together. There's no nice, elegant quack and release melting of the sound, as the sound kind of shapes and melts together, or a nice slow command and control Messa di Voce, or a nice windy wind and release onset. You see, these other onsets have more graceful approach. The attack and release is just ah, 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 ah. It's just a chaotic crash of my vocal folds. And yeah, that can be fatiguing. And again, I have to tell you, in good vocal health, to not do this too often. However, if you do it in a controlled environment, if you do an attack and release onset a little bit in the head voice for 5 to 10 minutes after you've built some strength in your training, you can build amazing interarytenoid activity. This is the attack and release onset on an A4. You hear it's very chaotic. Now that doesn't hurt. It sounds like it might, but trust me, it doesn't hurt. It's okay. Now I'm going to go up to a B flat. Okay. To a B. To a C5. All right. Now, like the contract and release onset, I feel that. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel scratchy or anything. But I feel the musculature pumping. I feel the blood kind of pumping up. It's okay. So, the attack and release onset, obviously we would hear that in music from time to time, especially if you're a rocker. And we're going to use it every once in a while in training. If you're feeling healthy, you've had a good session, spend 4 or 5 minutes doing attack and release onsets, and you will enhance the strength of that interarytenoid muscle, which is so important to making your head voice sound big and boomy and chesty. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. The contract and release and the attack and release onsets need to be just worked with sparingly. Be responsible in your use of those two particular onsets, okay? Use the specialized onsets as troubleshooters to fix problems when you're training your onsets and sirens, and to build strength of the interarytenoids when you're looking to get bigger and beefier in the head voice.